This is Wickett on Wisconsin. My name's Mike Wickett. After 10 years in Milwaukee talking sports, I took a bit of a break, but now I'm back and here to talk about the Packers, the Bucks, the Brewers, and more with you. And now inside the Koss Headphone Studios, this is Wickett on Wisconsin with me, Mike Wickett. Thanks so much for checking out this episode. This is the second time this week that I've done an episode of Wickett on Wisconsin, one of these podcasts, where I didn't know I was going to do it when I woke up. But I have been chomping at the bit to talk about the news that James Harden might actually want to play for your Milwaukee Bucks. Now, I don't want to say that I saw this coming, but even before Shams, the man who broke the news this morning at The Athletic, had put out that Harden might want to include or wants to include Milwaukee on his list. Your boy Mike Wickett put this out in a tweet last night, and I got receipts. If you want to follow me at Mike Wickett, you can see it. That Bucks fans are going to lose it when Giannis signs the Supermax on the same day that Milwaukee trades Chris Middleton and DJ Wilson to the Rockets for James Harden. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm going to say that my little crystal ball might have been working there before the big news. Now, this podcast, I feel like I'm going to talk a lot on this podcast. I got about 15 different things to get to, and I hope I place this all in the right order for you. But here's the way we're gonna break this one down. What would you be getting? What would you be giving up? All the naysayers, because I got a lot of social media naysayers about the possibility of this deal happening, and the end game, like what's going to happen. So we're going to get to all of that. If you don't know, the big news that James Harden, who is unhappy with the Houston Rockets and the direction or whatever, he wants out. The rumor is that he wants to either go to Philadelphia or Brooklyn, and then all of a sudden this morning, news comes out that he wants to go to another contender, including Milwaukee. Also on that list is Miami. Huge. Absolutely huge. What would you be giving up? We're going to put Harden on hold for a quick second because you have to figure out how would this deal even happen to acquire the league's leading scorer over the last 5 years. You would have to match salaries. First and foremost, you would have to match salaries. James Harden makes $38.2 million coming up next year, which, by the way, just saying that is absurd. But as we're all sitting and waiting for the Supermax to happen, I guess it's not all that absurd now, is it? $38.2 million. You have to somehow come up with a way to match that. It's actually really easy for Milwaukee to do so. Talking about the Brooklyn deal, potentially he wants to go play with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in Brooklyn. They'd have to match about 6 guys or come up with 6 guys to match that massive number. Milwaukee could do it with 2 or maybe 3, all right? Chris Middleton, DJ Wilson, and done. That's it. Like, if you're talking about just matching salaries, and I don't know if that's going to be enough, but if you were talking about just matching salaries, you would match Harden's 38.2 with Chris Middleton's 33 and change, along with DJ Wilson on the last year of his rookie deal, about 4.5. You probably, and I'm going to get to whether or not this deal will actually go down coming up in a bit. But before I do that, I don't know if that is enough, all right? I just talked about salary-wise. If Houston says we've had enough with Harden, we want to move on from Harden, the Harden era was good, we tried, they got to the playoffs a bunch of times, they almost got to the NBA Finals, they ran into some really, really good teams in the West, you would be... and they've made changes. They got a new head coach. D'Antoni's out. They've added John Wall. It's a new regime, a new era. They sent Russell Westbrook to D.C. for Wall, so things are going to be changing there in Houston. You would be getting an all-star 2-guard and an expiring contract in DJ Wilson. Now, that might not be enough, to entice Houston to make the trade. You might also have to give up Dante DiVincenzo. I don't think hearts are going to break. Young, promising, getting better, good two-way player. I think a lot of people like Dante DiVincenzo in Milwaukee, but if you have the opportunity to bring in a guy like James Harden, I don't think you're too in love with Dante DiVincenzo, DJ Wilson, and I hope you're not too in love with Chris Middleton to make this deal a reality. So if you're talking about just salary, because that's really the number one thing the Bucks have to do right now is come up with ways to entice Houston to do it at match salary. That's what you really are going to have to, look at is Middleton and what to get to that $38.2 million. The Bucks don't have the draft capital to really entice the Rockets. They gave all that up. They gave that up for Drew Holiday. They gave away 3 first-rounders to get Drew Holiday. I'm not saying that's a bad move. I'm just saying that's where they're at right now because I believe they thought the Bogdanovich deal was going to happen, and that fell through for whatever reason. You can throw whatever blame you want to throw at, the Bogdanovich deal not going down. So that's what they would have to give up salary-wise. I don't know other assets. Somebody said that, getting back P.J. Tucker or some whatever. I'm talking straight salary. It would be Middleton, DJ Wilson, and maybe DV3, as the Bucks don't have all that many good, young, talented players that are going to knock your socks off because they've been so good. They draft so late. There really isn't anything else that they can do. What would you be getting? Now, this is where the debate has been on social media. Now, again, I'm not sure the Milwaukee Bucks have the draft capital needed to bring in James Harden. But I'm going to make this very clear. If you can add an elite NBA player to your roster, you do it. As long as the Milwaukee Bucks don't have to move Giannis or Drew, I don't care what it takes to get James Harden on the Milwaukee Bucks. He is one of the best scorers in the NBA. Stop telling me about Chris Middleton. People have been crapping on Chris Middleton for years, especially recently. $30 million a year. What's he really giving you? Now, Middleton's a fine player, all right? I'll talk more about him coming up in a bit. But James Harden is a superstar. He's an MVP candidate. Chris Middleton will never be an MVP candidate. The guy averages 35 a night. 35 a night. Think about this. If Chris Middleton, if you watch a Bucks game and Chris Middleton goes off for 35, you're like, huge night for Chris. That's awesome. That's what you get out of James Harden. How many nights a year in 82 games in a regular schedule, because with COVID everything's weird, but how many nights do you think in an 82-game schedule Chris Middleton can go off for 50? 1? 2? Every night, James Harden is a threat to go off for 50. You are getting the NBA's leading scorer the last two seasons and the last 5 overall. You're getting a guy who's top 10 in assists per game. You're getting a guy who's top 10 in steals per game. And I know a lot of people will say, well, he's an abomination on defense. He's really not. Statistically, according to the nerds, and I'm not one of these guys that buys into all the statistics and whatnot, but James Harden is statistically a darn good defender. Now, YouTube will tell you different. I'm guilty of that. I've posted the YouTube videos on my Twitter page of James Harden, ole defense, and just staring at somebody and not doing anything. You can hide his defensive deficiencies if you believe that he's defensively deficient. You can hide Harden's issues on defense because you have an elite point guard in Drew Holiday. You have the defensive player of the year, and you got the big man in Brook Lopez. Who knows who's going to start at the 3 if they trade Chris Middleton? But we'll get to the lineup here coming up. There's a lot to be said on this podcast. You are getting, if you can pull this off, one of the great scorers in the NBA. Who are the best scorers in the NBA? Kevin Durant, when healthy. Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, James Harden. I mean, there's some other guys you can throw in your list, but you're getting you would have 2 of the top 10 players in the NBA in your starting 5 every single night. And you know what? Middleton's a nice guy. Middleton's a fine player. Middleton's an all-star. He's no superstar. What wins in the NBA? What wins titles in the NBA? This is all about winning a championship. This is all about making Milwaukee a championship city. This is all about making Giannis happy, and it all comes back to winning titles, all right? What wins in the NBA? It's not a 12-man rotation. You know what won the title this year in that weird bubble season? Two guys that are known as AD and LeBron. Anthony Davis and LeBron James, and guys. Yeah, there's some fine talent on that Lakers roster, but they were garbage until those two guys hooked up. I mean, LeBron and guys didn't do anything last year. It took a second superstar to finally go. The league is built this way. Look at Brooklyn. They got Kevin Durant. They got Kyrie Irving. If they add James Harden, it's over in the East. Milwaukee has Giannis, superstar. Drew, real good player. Middleton, somewhere between real good player and superstar. All-star is what I would say about that. You add James Harden into that starting lineup, you're adding 15 points per game more. And don't say, well, he's going to give up. He's not. He's not. First of all, the Bucks' defensive system doesn't call for a lot of one-on-one, get out there and guard guys at the perimeter. It's, you know, it is. It's pack the paint. It's make the other team beat you from the outside. It's force defenders to the wings to shoot the low percentage threes. Bucks will be fine with James Harden on defense. Absolutely fine. But the league is built, unfortunately, the team with the most superstars wins the title more often than not. LeBron, Wade, and Bosh in Miami. You had Kevin Durant and the Splash Brothers in Golden State. They may have been something special before Kevin Durant got there, but that team was unbelievable until everybody got hurt. And you know what were you going to do? You know, Kawhi Leonard. You know, he and Paul George are in L.A. now with the Lakers or with the Clippers. I know Paul George just signed some sort of long max extension to stick there. They're gonna run it back with those two superstars. You need superstars in the NBA to win, and if you can acquire James Harden and put him with Giannis Antetokounmpo, that's two superstars right there. Best team in the East. If your starting five looks like this: Drew Holiday at your point guard, James Harden at your two. Your three may just have to be Bobby Portis. 6'10", he can play a couple of spots. I don't work out all of the lineups. There will be some combos that Bud would have to work with, but just bear with me, all right? They lose a little size coming off the bench if that's the case, but fine. I'm going Drew, I'm going Harden, I'm going Portis, and then I'm going Giannis at the 4 and Brook at the 5. Find me a better starting 5 than that in the Eastern Conference. I mean, what a series that would be with the Miami Heat. What a series that would be with Toronto. What a series that would be with Brooklyn. Or if they're ever able to put it together in Philadelphia with Simmons and Embiid. I mean, boom. You're automatically, any doubt you had, because you lost some pieces, you lost some shooting, you're in the offseason, you added Drew Holiday, you added a couple of other guys, you added Portis, you added DJ Augustine. But if you can add James Harden to your lineup, you are adding one of the 10 best players in the NBA to your lineup, you take that shot. This is a no-brainer. A lot of naysayers on social media. And I wrote some of these down, as a matter of fact, so I could talk about them. What about this beef with Giannis? Listen. They're grown men, all right? Giannis has said a couple of weeks ago, as a matter of fact, that he doesn't need to be the number one, that Giannis doesn't have to be the guy that has the ball all the time and to be the team's leading scorer. He wants to win a championship. This beef would go by the wayside if Giannis and James Harden sat in a room in Milwaukee at Fiserv Forum or wherever in the Brew City. Heck, maybe Giannis flies to Texas or whatever. Maybe they Zoom chat because you have to do that with COVID. The beef gets taken care of. It gets squashed. It just is what it is. It's just a war of words. Who cares? They'll figure it out because this would play so well for the Milwaukee Bucks. You couldn't count on Chris Middleton. You couldn't count on Kyle Korver or Wes Matthews or Eric Bledsoe or Brook Lopez. You couldn't count on anybody to hit shots the last 2 years in crunch time when Giannis met the wall. This is the guy. This is the guy right here. Somebody said, what about 3 years from now? He's got 2 years left on his contract after this. Harden does. And we don't know about Giannis. We haven't talked about Giannis' Supermax yet. Here we will in a second. So what? You want a title? You want to win a championship? You want to keep Giannis in town? I mean, if I told you that the Bucks, if they gave up Chris Middleton and DJ Wilson and Dante DiVincenzo, brought in Harden and got you a championship in the next 2 seasons, who cares what happens in 2023? Who cares? Who gives a rip what happens in 2023? This is about winning now. This is about making Giannis happy. This is about keeping Giannis in Milwaukee. This is about winning a championship. What about a Supermax? That was one of the things, too. How are they going to afford this? Listen, I'm not a numbers guy, per se. I know that Harden's contract is going to continue to go up. Giannis doesn't have to sign a Supermax by the time the season starts in like an hour or whenever the season begins. Giannis can sign that same Supermax deal next season, at the end of next season. He's still... maybe that's the best move for Giannis. Maybe that's the best move for him financially. I mean, he's not the highest paid Buck right now. He'd be making $27 million. He's making $27 million coming up for this next season. But maybe the best move for Giannis between he and his agent is to see what happens with this lineup. With Chris and Drew, it's a fine lineup. They should be in contention to win the East. Maybe it's to see what happens this year, and then maybe he signs the Supermax. I am fully confident Giannis isn't going anywhere. Some people less confident than me. I am not worried whatsoever. I think this is the greatest sign that the owners and general manager John Horst could ever make to Giannis about wanting to win in Milwaukee. Bring in James Harden, and you make Giannis happy. Assuming Giannis signs off on it. Look, I could be sitting here. I'm in front of my microphone. You're listening to this wherever, or you're watching the video wherever you are. And Giannis may not want this. And if Giannis doesn't want it, well, then this is all moot, right? This is all absolutely moot. And you're probably right about that. But the beef thing is garbage. If Giannis wants a title, Giannis knows who's great. Giannis knows that his guy, Chris Middleton, his buddy, the guy he wanted to stick around in Milwaukee, he knows his limitations. Middleton was great the one game Giannis got hurt. Middleton took over that game. The next game, it was obvious he's not a one. And that's another thing, too. Somebody brought this up on social media, and I thought it was a great point. When Giannis is off, or Giannis needs a day off, or gets hurt, or whatever, or let's say a team is building a wall, who's the next guy that can go off for 35 when Giannis can't? Or Giannis isn't. I don't trust Chris Middleton to do it. I'm a Middleton guy. Like, if you've heard me do podcasts over and over in my time in Milwaukee, I was a Middleton guy. Still am a Middleton guy. He is what he is. He's a good player. Not many guys in this league are 50, 40, 90, and he was darn close to that this year. 50% from the field, 40% from three, and 90 from the stripe. But when you have the ability to take a guy who averages 22, is it 22? 26 and 4, and you can get to a guy who averages 35, 7, and 6, it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer in my mind to upgrade from Middleton to Harden. And the fact that they're so close in salary is just, it's a sign. It's perfect. Somebody said he's not the right fit. James Harden's not the right fit. You fit it. If Harden wants a title, if Giannis wants a title, if Bud wants a title, you fit it. You do. Like I mentioned earlier about his defensive deficiency, you can hide that a little. I don't need him to be as good as Drew Holiday, all right? I'm going to trade off, all right, from having a really, really good defender in Chris Middleton to having a good defender in James Harden. I'm going to add 15 points. I'm going to add an elite scorer. I'm going to add someone who's going to space the floor out so Giannis has more room in the middle. That makes absolute perfect sense to me. And about not being the right fit, everyone talks about how Harden likes to let the ball fly, right? That's what Harden's known for. Just, he's a chucker. Is there a better offense other than what he was playing in D'Antoni's offense in Houston? Is there a better offense for James Harden than Mike Budenholzer's let it fly offense? I mean, you're going to see him have those nights where he goes off for 40 and 50 often because he shoots so much from outside. And that's not going to take away from Giannis. Giannis is still going to be around the paint, cleaning up, driving to the basket. I think it would just be, it's mind-blowing that some people out there would rather have Chris Middleton than James Harden. This is not a knock on Chris. This is an opportunity to upgrade and get a generational talent to play along your other generational talent. I like this one, too. James Harden hasn't proven it. What does that mean? Has Chris Middleton proven it? Has Giannis even proven it? No one's really proven anything on this Bucks roster in the postseason. You know, he hasn't proven he can do it in the playoffs, is what I got a lot today on social media, on the Facebook page and on Twitter. No one proves it until they do. You know, that's perhaps playing on the Houston Rockets in that system. I mean, what's Mike D'Antoni really ever won? The other side of that is he ran into some pretty good competition in the West, namely the Splash Brothers. Those golden, I mean, unfortunately, the team with the best record in the NBA and the highest scoring team and how great James Harden was a couple of years ago, it was no match. I mean, it was a great series, went 7 games. Chris Paul got hurt, and Houston wound up losing that series. But he ran up against some pretty stiff competition. It's like all those good teams in the 90s could have been like Karl Malone and John Stockton, or Drexler and Terry Porter and the Blazers, or Charles Barkley's Suns. Those teams probably were darn good teams, but you know who they ran into? They ran into Michael. They ran into Michael and the Bulls. And that's nothing against Chuck. That's nothing against Malone. That's nothing against John Stockton. They just ran into better teams. I want to move on to the chances that this actually does happen, because some people are just poo-pooing this from the very start, and I don't know if the chances are great, okay? I don't know if the opportunity is really all that strong that Milwaukee can get Houston to agree to trading for James Harden. I do know this. General Manager Horst, Edens, Lazary, you will never get another opportunity like this. The Bucks will never get another opportunity like this. Let me say that again. The Bucks will never, ever get another opportunity like this to have 2 superstars on their roster as they would if they add James Harden. Giannis is a superstar. Chris is a good player, real good player. But you will never, ever have the chance to have 2 of the best players in the National Basketball Association starting for you ever again. And if you don't do this, you might lose your homegrown superstar because you didn't do enough. What if they run this back and nothing changes? They get to the second round of the playoffs and get knocked out. General Manager Horst, Edens, Lazary, like Eminem said, you only get one shot. Take your shot and get Harden to Milwaukee. Now, what are the chances? 10, 15%. 10 to 15% is what I got. First and foremost, and a lot of people have pointed this out, and I totally agree with you. I think my buddy Lance Allen, along with some others, have made this point. Usually, a player knows where he wants to go, all right? It's pretty obvious that he wants to wind up in Brooklyn. Well, at least that's what everybody believes. And when this kind of trickled out and the Milwaukee Bucks made it to his list, a lot of people said, this is just agent talk. This is just trying to up the ante, trying to make Brooklyn want to play the game a little bit more. And that might be right. You know, all of this could just be getting Brooklyn to really go all in to try to get Harden out of Houston and playing for the Nets. And that's an entirely accurate, wonderful possibility. I mean, it sucks if you're a Bucks fan, but it totally makes sense. Like, this happens a lot. A lot of times you'll see teams, you know, hear that another guy wants to go to a conference rival, which is what Milwaukee is right now to those conference championship contending teams, and they want him to up the ante. You can see that, you know. Hey, if you don't trade for me, Milwaukee's going to trade for me because I'm going to allow that, or Miami or whatever. So this could just be his way of trying to force Brooklyn's hand. The other thing, and I started with this, and I'm gonna end with it here. The other thing is just simply that the Bucks don't have the first-round picks. The 2021 draft is apparently supposed to be really, really good. The Bucks don't have a pick. The Bucks traded away 3 first-rounders to get BREW. They just may not have the draft capital that Houston really wants. I think DiVincenzo's a nice player. Middleton, a real good player. It'd be a new era with Middleton and Wall. They could start kind of over there, but I don't know if the Bucks have the draft capital. I don't know if Brooklyn is going to concede and say, okay, we'll send you Kyrie for him, or we'll send you Kevin Durant for him, because that's what they want. Those guys right now are off the table. And they have they have to use 6 guys' salaries to match the $38 million. I don't know if what's going to happen in Miami. They apparently will not include any talks for anybody that includes Tyler Hero, Milwaukee's own, because he was so good. He's such an integral part of the future of that organization. As of right now, they will not listen to any trade opportunities or trade talks that include Tyler Hero. I don't know why you wouldn't do that. I'm not 100% sure that a backcourt with Jimmy Butler and James Harden works. They're fairly similar players. Jimmy goes to the rack a little more, but, I don't know if that would really work. I feel like Butler would have to go to Houston to make that happen, or they'd have to send Bam Adebayo, who they just signed to a long-term deal, and I don't see Miami doing that. You never know, though. You have absolutely no idea what can happen. So, again, it would be an obvious upgrade. It is a no-brainer to bring in one of the best players in the NBA, who, by the way, when you need free throws hit, I don't think I've ever actually seen James Harden miss a free throw. I just don't think it's ever happened, because that's a dude who is a shooter, and he plays a brand of basketball. Oh, I have to say this, too. I forgot to mention this. We know he can score. We know his numbers are tremendous. We know he's a great free throw shooter. And I have said this, and this would kind of feel like the way Brewers fans feel about Ryan Braun versus the way the rest of the world feels about Ryan Braun. I don't think there are a lot of James Harden fans that enjoy watching him play basketball outside of Houston. I have said that he is the least enjoyable superstar to watch play in the NBA, and I truly do mean that. His game is just not appealing to my eye, but the results are what they are. The guy gets buckets. And it's kind of like when Braun goes everywhere, he got booed, right, when he was playing for the Brewers, or Barry Bonds got booed. But in Milwaukee and in San Francisco with Bonds, that's our guy, all right? I think the Milwaukee fans, including this one, who don't enjoy watching James Harden play basketball, would all of a sudden become huge Harden fans, and you'd see James Harden jerseys everywhere in the Brew City and all over the state of Wisconsin if James Harden was a Milwaukee Buck, because now you got 2 guys that can go for 30 or 40 every single night. He'd be your guy. He may play ugly basketball, but he's our guy playing ugly basketball. Just like Braun may have cheated, but you know what? He's our guy. Same thing that goes for Barry Bonds. So that's it, man. I hope they do make it happen. I think it would be tremendous for the city. You'd have them under control. Very high salary, but you could figure out the rest of your roster. The cap guys would know what to do. I'm not a capologist. I'm sure there are other guys who can break the salaries down and this, that, and move pieces all around. But get Harden to Milwaukee. You'd be the best team in the East by far. Over. Done. Stay healthy. Put him in the Eastern Conference Finals. Let's roll. Thanks for checking out this episode. My name is Mike Wickett. This has been Wickett on Wisconsin. Until next time, go Pack, go Bucks, and go Brewers. And oh, by the way, don't forget, please tell your friends about Wickett on Wisconsin. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. I want you to also rate the podcast, review the podcast, so I can grow the podcast. All right, until next time, I'm Mike Wickett. I will talk with you again probably after the Packers and the Lions game. Unless something else happens, who knows? Who knows? Go Pack Go, go Bucks, and go Brewers. Thanks for listening to Wickett on Wisconsin. If you have any feedback or you want to reach out to the show, you can find me on Facebook, Mike Wickett Podcasts, or you can email MikeWickettPodcasts@gmail.com. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter @Mike Wickett. Thanks to Silverman Sound Studios for providing the music for today's show. And you can find us anywhere you find your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Until next week, thanks for listening to Wickett on Wisconsin.